Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well, and if you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. All right, so the other piece of news that came out today, did all the Jimmy Butler stuff in another video. You guys can go check that out on the channel. This one is going to focus on the other NBA news on the day, which was the news that De'Aaron Fox, it appears that the Sacramento Kings have opened up business as it occurs to trading their superstar, their star point guard, De'Aaron Fox. And Rich Paul, his agent, Clutch Sports, bit of a squirrely history with the Miami Heat. They do have a player on their roster who is a Rich Paul client. That is Alec Burks. Not sure if he's loved his role this year, but has been praised by Spo for being the consummate professional. Honestly, I think he should probably get some more minutes. But there was an interesting report today from Shams Charania that was very, very interestingly worded, where he said, Justin, the Sacramento Kings are expected to open up talks to potentially deal all-star De'Aaron Fox ahead of the February 6th trade deadline, sources tell ESPN. There will be plenty of suitors, but it's believed that Fox has a target destination in mind ahead of his 2026 free agency. There were a lot of reporters out of Sacramento after that. I guess it's not very much a held secret because I know a lot of Heat fans, including myself in the midst of it, were like, one shooter, who would that be? Could we be back in the business of whaling for the Miami Heat? It does not appear that it's the Miami Heat. Not to say that the Miami Heat are out of the game, but the destination that Rich Paul would really like his client to get to, according to reporters, is the San Antonio Spurs. That it appears that De'Aaron Fox would like to team up with Victor Wembanyama and be the dynamic duo that would be paired with the giant Frenchman. And I know that the initial reaction would be, dude, it's San Antonio. You want to go to San Antonio over Miami? But I almost get this from the standpoint, to be honest with you, from Rich Paul. First of all, you want to set your client up for a monster payday and an organization to definitely say, hey, this is your guy going forward. You also want to be at a spot where San Antonio right now is at, where like they're on the crescendo of being good. They're 20-23. They add somebody like him, and maybe they can get into the play-in. Maybe they can make a little bit of a run. Your client is then looked upon as a hero, kind of in a different spot than he was with Sacramento. They're not very far apart in the standings. And then, of course, you're pairing with a guy who everybody thinks is going to be a bona fide top 10 player in Victor Wembanyama. So from a basketball perspective, we always talk about market with these guys, but this guy's played already in a market that's not exactly loved by free agents, I would say. So, maybe for him it really is to pair with a star player that he really, really likes. They brought in Domantas Sabonis. It had a nice little run for 1 year. Doesn't feel like it's been all it's cracked up to be, and I do feel like Sabonis has kind of taken his shine as the face of the Kings. So the Spurs thing actually makes a lot of sense. Now, should the Miami Heat get in the game for De'Aaron Fox? I was already struggling with this today because I get crazy with this stuff. But here's what I would say. One of the things with De'Aaron Fox, even though I love stars, and I'm not gonna be clear on this, I am not gonna cry if the Miami Heat trade De'Aaron Fox. I am going to be doing whale calls. I will wear a Fox face. I will walk around, the Kaseya Center with a fox tail on, looking like a furry. Trust me, I will be full all in if De'Aaron Fox becomes a member of the Miami Heat. But I do wonder the ascendance of Tyler Herro, who has played awesome this year. He has played at an all-star level this year. He is really, in a lot of, it's been his team this year. Adding De'Aaron Fox to a backcourt with Tyler Herro. One, is that going to be a basketball relationship that is loved, right? Like this is a team that we've talked about right now. They have a nice groove they're going into here. We cannot say where they're even close to contending wise. They don't look close to contending. They look like a 500 team right now. We're trying to see, hey, if these two behemoths and Bam Adebayo can get his shot together, and Tyler Herro continues to play the level he is, and Duncan plays where, what can that be? And what will be the missing piece to all that? If you were to make a move for the Sacramento Kings and you were to call them up, first of all, you don't have the draft capital. So then you have to start asking yourself, hey, would we give up Nikola Jović? Would we give up Kel'el Ware? Would we give up one of our, Jaime Jaquez obviously isn't having the year we all expected. Is that still an attractive? He was on the Rising Stars team. He made Rising Stars. Kel'el Ware did not. Saw people get outraged by this. I kind of get it. Like, Kel'el Ware's basically burst on the scene the last 2 weeks. So I'm sure if the Rising Stars game was in a couple of weeks later, I'm sure he would have made it. And maybe he still will make it at some point with injury replacements and all that. Either way, he looks incredible. And I think everybody's just kind of like dazzled by the way that he looks. And I don't know if the Miami Heat have already shut the doors on using him as a trade piece. But I got to think that everybody would be pretty hesitant to put him in any deal right now, because it's a couple things. It's not only that he looks tremendously talented, but getting cheap production in the NBA has become more and more valuable by the year. The contracts are getting crazy. You have all these aprons. You need to be really sure about the star you're bringing in if you're going to give up guys with that many years. Nico's, I guess, a little bit of an interesting one, even though there's nobody probably on this, Heat Nation that's been a bigger Jović advocate than me, just because he is still like in the trio of Bam, Kel'el, and Nico. Right now, it just feels like he's the third. And then, of course, you have Tyler, who's, obviously the number one hub of offense in all the team. But I just think when you watch Nico, like, there's something modern about his skill set that is very, very impressive to watch. So the other thing is, with two of the bigs, with Bam and with Nico, and then Tyler, you have three guys who have the ball in their hands a lot. And Duncan Robinson, can do all kind of the special things. So I'm not here to dismiss a guy who's averaged 25 points a game in his career. He has. But you already have kind of seen with Tyler, you got that. And I wonder for Rich Paul, who's dealing with this a little bit in Cleveland, where there was a lot of fodder and chatter that Darius Garland was going to go to the San Antonio Spurs because, maybe he didn't love the idea that he was sharing a backcourt with Donovan Mitchell. Now, they're the best team in the Eastern Conference this year. Winning cures all. Right now, that's not an issue. But if they get bounced or they don't go as far, maybe that stuff pokes and rears its ugly head. They seem to be working with two dynamic backcourt guys who are a little bit undersized. The Miami Heat, Tyler's not undersized, but he's not big, and he's definitely not a defensive stopper. De'Aaron Fox is. Is that like the recipe for success right now? I don't know. That's an interesting one. It also depends on the trade, and it depends on where the Miami Heat can get the arsenal, and that is kind of going back to the Jimmy Butler thing. Like, if they can somehow come away with the Jimmy Butler thing with an extra pick to give away, you'll be in a better spot. But it's tough to imagine the Miami Heat getting in the De'Aaron Fox game with all this Jimmy stuff hanging over them. And who's to say, the Kings may, tell De'Aaron Fox, like, hey, we'll deal with this in the summer. We'll look at this and we'll start trading and we'll look at it in the summer. Maybe everybody will have a better assessment of things. We'll have a little bit more of a full picture on this. But he is now the biggest guy, the biggest fish, the biggest whale in the game that could get dealt. So it is interesting that we have gotten to this point with him, because certainly he has for those who don't know, has a fantastic relationship with Bam Adebayo. college teammates. Bam, groomsmen at his wedding. Very, very close. I'm sure Bam would welcome him with open arms to come to the team. But I do think the Heat have to look at it and be like, well, the Kings haven't ascended, since, he's always been, and he was always a Heat killer, even when the Kings suck. But they haven't really ascended in in these last few years, and that's even with adding Sabonis and some of the moves that they made. And the Kings are, not the best organization in the world for sure, but one has to wonder when the Heat are clearing the decks and they have these pipe dreams of Luka, or maybe even crazy dreams about Anthony Edwards, if there's ownership issues in Minnesota, is this the guy that they want to add to this core? It is going to be an interesting pivot. Like, who is the Miami Heat going to try and lean into to try and be as like their next post Jimmy Butler star? There's been a lot of talk about who is the Miami Heat. Was anybody going to want to come here? I don't know. The Miami Heat, if De'Aaron Fox did get traded here, would he agree to an extension? I'm sure they already know, right? Like, Rich Paul is, put it like this, the Miami Heat would definitely know already, I would say, from Rich Paul's standpoint. They would know already, probably not only from Rich Paul, but also from their captain, whether or not De'Aaron Fox would be interested in staying here long term. Then you have to assess, what does adding him here do? Like, what does that do for the Miami Heat? Does that take them over the top? Maybe it does. I can't rule it out. That certainly is, like, you want to talk about having the night-to-night point production, at least point production added. That certainly helps, but does that take you over Cleveland? Does it take you over New York? Does it take you over Boston? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if De'Aaron Fox is that transcendent a star yet. I think with the Miami Heat, where they're at right now, is the next guy that they get, because Jimmy's gone, they need to say, all right, who is the transcendent star that we add into this hub with Tyler, with Bam, with Kel'el, with Nico? If we are able to make that happen without giving up those guys, that guy needs to be the guy right now to take them to that. So that has to be, that's when the Miami Heat are shooting for this stuff. Like, the way I'm legitimately looking at it, yeah, getting a new guy is going to be fun. All right. Like, again, if this happens, what the Fox say, that's what I'm going to be thinking to myself. So I will be a total phony on this. I just want to be clear. But I have thought, in the aftermath of this, even when I didn't even know the San Antonio thing was a thing, I was like, all right, I'm addicted to the chase. I'm a dirty, dirty orca slut. That's what I am. However, I do wonder, because Tyler's been amazing, and we starting to see him take the reins of the team, how do him and Fox fit? Great relationship with Bam Adebayo, for sure. So that's a plus on the Miami Heat side. Kel'el, incredible. Don't really feel like trading him for anybody that's not like an all-world player right now. Don't really love the idea of trading Nikola Jović. If you could get De'Aaron Fox for, Jaime and Rozier, or whatever the salary is, and somehow pick, hey, if that could happen for the Miami Heat and Pella, like, cool. Like, all right. We obviously are not going to be crying about that. But is De'Aaron Fox a guy that really takes the Miami Heat over the top? For the Suns, they think they have that guy in Victor Wembanyama, so they're now adding almost like his Jamal Murray. They're adding his wingman. That's what they're going to be looking at. Whereas the Miami Heat's next pivot, as much as laughable as the Luka thing is, and if we talked about this on the radio show today, if the Miami Heat really do have pipe dreams about Luka Doncic, dude, do yourself a favor right now, Miami, if you are serious about that and you don't think Luka's going to sign for $1 gazillion this summer, which, got to believe it before I see it. However, change in ownership with the Dallas Mavericks, maybe feels like they're banging their head against the wall. He'll make $1 gazillion anyway. He's that kind of a superstar. Is it crazy that we could see a Luka go full LeBron and do that kind of a summer again? Maybe not. I saw Sedano mention this on that they do feel like owners have not loved this whole era of give guys all these years and then they still ask out. They have not been down with the Durants, the Dames, the Paul Georges, the guys who still have a lot of years left on their deal and then are still skating out of town. So that could pivot to, hey, more guys are going to try and test free agency, which is, if you watch this De'Aaron Fox thing, one of the things that's interesting is he's kind of doing it in an old school way. He's not signed his extension. He is on the doorstep of free agency and now is making the move. He doesn't have a bunch of years left. Could we start seeing the tide turn that way? But I'm telling you right now, if you do have any dreams about getting Luka Doncic, you better make Goran Dragic the vice president of something. I don't know what the hell that position you need to make for him, but make one, Miami, okay? Let's be real about this. Let's be real. If you need somebody in the room right there who could sell you, who better than Gogi to get into the game with Luka? So if he doesn't sign that extension, the next day, once that passes, I better see Goran Dragic getting some kind of a job. But if it's not, then Anthony Edwards, whomever, it needs to be like one of those all-world guys. That needs to be like the Miami pivot if it's not going to be internal growth. If it's not going to be, hell, maybe Kel'el Ware becomes one of those guys. I don't know. But the Heat have to be really careful about getting a guy like De'Aaron Fox in that, to me, I don't think he's a sell the farm type of guy. You get him if you can get a good deal for him. And I am not going to be bitching and moaning if they get him. But he's not like all chips in the center of the table for him. I just don't think he's that kind of a guy for him. But we'll see how this all turns out. It doesn't seem like it even matters because he's got his sights set on a team that is not Miami anyway. So the Miami Heat probably just got to focus on getting Jimmy Butler off of their team.